Shalom, everybody. This is Dion Tolly, and welcome to another episode of our studies in Hebrew Israelite slash biblical history. And this is a special episode because in this episode, we're going to deal with the, the pressing question of particularly who we call African Americans, the pressing question of what will become of the Negro. What will become of the Hebrew? What will become of the Israelites? And the reason why I call them Israelites instead of, the common names that we use or affiliate with that particular bloodline or ethnicity or people is because this is what the scriptures call them. They call them Israelites, Judah or Israelites. And in this particular video, we're going to examine some of the pressing questions that I know our people have, or at least be wondering about. And that is, will we ever be free to govern ourselves, to be in a place where we are a people who are not just established as, a family of people who, and that's kind of tough to even get it out because it's so many different ways to approach this, but I'm just going to stay on where my heart is. And my heart is that are we ever going to find redemption? And redemption is something to where you feel like you're you've been vindicated. You realize that all of the suffering and misery that your people have experienced, that it wasn't for nothing. And that there is a future that you can be placed in ease and look to raise your children and live your life in peace without fear of being spoiled or exploited or even murdered and brutalized, as well as disenfranchised and discriminated against. So all of the people who we know in terms of biblical scholars, either they're unwilling to not just tackle this, but even delve into it and explore it, or they're unable because of restrictions they have in maintaining their lifestyle. And for me, that's unacceptable because you will be judged on that. A lot of the things that I teach from here is straight from the scriptures. That's why I do it the way that I do in terms of, you want to know that most conversations and things about these topics, you have a lot of hyperbole and you have a lot of things that are coming from people's minds and their hearts and all that. But that's not the way I choose to do it. I choose to show you from the source. So you're not seeing anything that I'm adding, you're seeing it from the source directly. And you're able to make up your own mind as to what it means and what it says, which is normally straightforward. That's the reason why you'll see traditionally most preachers will take a scripture and they'll take one passage and they'll extrapolate all of this message over one passage instead of just reading stories. These stories are testimonies. These stories, each one of these men, and let's go to the scriptures. Each one of these men that you see here, these are testimonies. First 5 books is Moses, Joshua, Judges. These were all judges in terms of whoever it was, the Most High assigned as a judge at that time. Ruth, Samuel, 2 Kings. That's always been to where whoever was alive at the time of these events that took place during that, the Most High had that judge record them. Okay, 2 Samuel's, Kings, Chronicles, Ezra's, all of these are testimonies of men who have not only been a part of the Israelite bloodline, but they have been called priests and prophets who are to share their testimony based on direct communication with the Most High. Rather it be visions, Holy Spirit, angels, many methods. If he's a living God, we say living Elohim, then of course he can communicate with you. If he's a living God with a soul, because he tells you he has a soul, then he can communicate his will and his commandments to you, and he can be a personable relationship, like he says, like a God and a God and his people, or a man and his wife. That's why we're considered the bride. And look at this passage here, kind of sums it up in terms of our preface to this whole study. Where he says, hear this word that the Elohim has spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I brought up out of the land of Egypt, saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore I will punish you for all your iniquities. You hear what he's saying here? He's saying only our people, and I believe that Negroes, black people, the descendants of slaves, are the Hebrew Israelites that are descendants of the original Israelites that are on the earth today. And he's saying, you only have I known. He said, he don't know all these other nations. And we got into it at a study in terms of the study of Samaria, where the Most High only dealt with his people. After they broke the commandments that Noah had admonished them and told them, commanded them to follow, and he told them this was for perpetuity, that if they followed them, they would be rooted out the earth. That's why there's so many cultures that are no longer here. Because if we're looking at Noah and history's sons, those are the progenitors of the whole earth. You got to remember, these men lived like Noah, 950 years old. Shem, 500 years old. So you're talking about, some people even say 600. I've seen in certain writings where it's 600 years old. Some of them go from when he had children. Nonetheless, these men, from the flood until after the flood, particularly Noah, lived 350 years after the flood. You know how many people can be born in terms of population in a 350-year span? Look at America. Look at all of the, 16, 19, whether you want to include the slaves or not. But look at them and the population it's grown to in 400 years. So this situation was to where everybody on the earth, by the time the end of Noah's life, everyone had already had instructions on how to live and how to preserve their life. So in terms of excuses, there are none. Particularly when it comes to us. Because he brought us, after the world being in the condition that it was in, he brought us out of what the scriptures say, the land of Chaldea, which was the first world empire. And he raised up Abraham, and he started his own people. And he set aside for himself, we call the holy people. And that began with one man. Then it went to his son Isaac. Then it went to his son Jacob. And then their 12 sons. And then we started growing from there. So let's get into the scriptures a little bit. Now let's look at how, first I want to stay, I'd be remiss if I didn't go to the this right here is pretty much the mantra of my life. And that is the prophecy he gave, which in terms of my journey, this is what set me on the course to where I am today. And that's this prophecy concerning Abraham. When he told Abraham, when it was just him, before he even had any children. And Ishmael don't count, because the Most High was saying that this would come from your seed, right? And then you had the seed that was considered the seed of promise because it came from a man and his wife, not a man and his concubine, like Hagar was, Ishmael's mother. But listen to it. He says, and he said to Abraham, know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterwards shall they come out with great substance. Now people say, well, listen, this is going all the way back 15, 20 years ago. I've been dealing with people who refuse to believe that this is a distinction between them and Egypt. And let's look at that. Exodus 12:40. Let's look at Exodus 12:40. Make the distinction. And he says, now the sojourning of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self-same day that it came to pass, that all the host of the Elohim went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Elohim for bringing them out of the land of Egypt. This is the night of the Elohim to be observed of all the children of Israel in their generations. Without getting on a tangent, look at that. He did it at night. A night. He brought them out at night. So let's look at the beginning. How did we get here? What is the nature of the children of Israel to why we're talking about a scripture where the Most High tells them that we're going to be put in a position to where we're going to be treated this way? Let's look at these things. The Most High laid commandments, right? And these commandments were to be followed to the letter. And if you weren't, there were consequences. That's just the way it is. With the Creator, there is no middle ground. There's no gray area. You either do what I tell you or you're in rebellion. Simple as that. We know that just from Moses, as perfect as he was. The Most High was wroth with him because he didn't do one in terms of striking the rock or as opposed to speaking to it. The Most High told him to speak to the rock, and in this case, he ended up striking the rock because the people frustrated him. He couldn't enter in. So this gives you an idea of the nature of the Elohim we serve. He's holy, and he demands that from his children. All right. Now let's look at this. Let's look at some of the issues that will define who our people is in terms of history. Let's look at this. Now let's go to Judges. Now Judges, he said, now these are the nations which the Elohim left to prove Israel by them. And this was after all of the nations that Joshua and Moses were, other than Moses in the 40 years and the things that the nations that they were, like the giants and the Rephaim and all of these nations that the Most High was supplanting. You know what that word means? Everybody, according to the people who claim to be Israel today, they think that in terms of him being, a finagler, a shyster when it came to business and the way that he dealt with agreements and contracts. Not at all. The Most High is saying that Jacob's name means supplanter, which means that you pull something up by the roots. Don't get it twisted. That's why all of those nations, the Most High, particularly with Judges and Joshua and Gideon and Samuel, they were uprooting nations who were in rebellion from the days of Noah. He was rooting them out, fulfilling the promises and the actually it's like a prophecy that Noah told them would befall them if they went astray. Noah told them, you're going to get rooted out the land. Well, at any rate, he says, now these nations which The Elohim left to prove Israel as many of Israel as had not known all of the wars of Canaan, only that the generation of the children of Israel might know, to teach them war, at least such as were before knew nothing thereof, namely the 5 lords of the Philistines and the Canaanites and the Sidonians and the Hittites that dwelt in Mount Lebanon, from Mount Bel Hermon even to the entering of Hamath, that's Syria. And they were to prove Israel by them, to know whether they would hearken unto the commandments of the Elohim, which he commanded their fathers by the hand of Moses. And the children of Israel dwelt among the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, and Hiphites, and Jebusites. And they took their daughters to be wives and gave their daughters to their sons and served their gods. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Elohim and forgot their Elohim and served Baalim in the groves. Therefore, the anger of the Elohim was hot against Israel. And you're talking immediately after the 40 years and all of the things they went through with Moses in the Exodus, this is where they ended up. And it was unacceptable to the Elohim, as it should be. And he sold them into the hand of Cushran Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. And the children of Israel served Cushan Rishathaim 8 years. And the children of Israel cried unto the Elohim. And the Elohim raised up a deliverer to the children of Israel, who delivered them, even Othniel, the son of Kenaz, Caleb's younger brother. He was the only one who made it out of there. Of those in the wilderness. Y'all know the story. And the spirit of the Elohim came upon him, and he judged Israel. And they went to war. And the Elohim delivered Cushan Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia, into his hand. And his hand prevailed against Cushan Rishathaim. And the children of Israel did again evil in the sight of the Elohim. And the Elohim strengthened Eglon, the king of Moab, against Israel, because they had done evil in the sight of the Elohim. And he gathered unto them the children of Ammon and Amalek, and went and smote Israel, and possessed the city of the palm trees, so that the children of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. You got this? This is setting a pattern to where our people, and this is just keeping it real with folks, our people are rebellious. The Most High says it in the law. The children of Israel are stiff-necked people. And that's our people. We love them, but that's our people. That's our nature. And it's disheartening, because we keep doing the same things over and over again, assimilating with the people who were essentially beneath us. Now let's look at 2 Kings. Let's look at 2 Kings 17, right? Let's look at 2 Kings 17. Now it says this is the fall of Israel. So you're seeing now that they went into captivity with Israel. Actually kind of started a thought of a captivity with Jacob while he was solidifying his wives with Laban. But because he did nothing wrong, the Most High delivered him, and he came out with great wealth, power, and glory, and respected and honored among all of the nations at that time. But when we start rebelling, like at this one, he says the fall of Israel. In the 9th year, Hosea, king of Assyria, took Samaria. You know what that Samaria is, and you get into the story. He says, now Israel, and he carried Israel away into Assyria, and placed them in Halah and Habar by the river Gazan, in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Elohim, and which brought them out of the land of Egypt from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and had feared other gods, and walked in the statutes of the heathen, whom the Elohim cast out from before the children of Israel, and the kings of Israel which they made. And the children of Israel did secretly those things which were not right against the Elohim their God. And they built them high places in their cities, and from the tower of the watchmen to the fenced cities. And they set them up images Everything is about images with black people, with the crosses and the pictures and the whole 9 yards. Where these are graven images. It's in the law. You're not supposed to worship certain things you create with your own hands. They can't speak, they can't hear, they can't see. So certainly they can't deliver you from anything. And we were worshiping these things that we created, which is a pagan. Those who used, and instead of submitting to what Noah inscribed them, going back to the beginning, this is what they did as an alternative. The rebellion, we'll set up our own stuff, just not to have to do what you tell us to do. He said, they burnt incenses in all high places and did as the heathen, whom the Elohim carried away before them, and wrought wicked things to provoke the Elohim to anger. Notwithstanding, they would not hear, but hardened their necks, like the neck of their fathers, that did not believe the Elohim, or Yahweh their Elohim, or Yeshua their Elohim, whichever one you want to put it. And they rejected his statutes and his covenant that he made with their fathers and his testimonies which he testified against them. And they followed vanity and became vain and went after the heathen that were round about them, concerning whom the Elohim had charged them that they should not do like them. And they left all of the commandments of the Elohim, and they made molten images, even 2 cows, and made a grove and worshiped all the host of heaven. You see that with the Jupiter and the Zeus and the, come on, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire, which means that you literally burnt your firstborn children as a sacrifice for fame and fortune and divination and different things that you felt these gods were going to bring to you, which, listen, never happened. Most High swore that if you defy me and rebel against me, none of these gods will help you, because none of them really could. If they were demons, they definitely weren't going to help you. They were using that in order to see your ruin. Now, at the end of the day, that's why it's called deception. He said, now they used this divination and enchantments and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Elohim to provoke him to anger. And he said, therefore, the Elohim was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. And there was none left but the tribe of Judah only. And we'll see that we get to that when we go to Jerusalem and all that. So they weren't absolved and excused either. And Judah kept not the commandments of the Elohim their God, but walked in the statute of Israel, which they made. So they say they started following after Israel. Because you got to remember, you're talking about the separation after Solomon, Rehoboam and Jeroboam. They both got in a rebellion and they moved and separated and divided the kingdom, which the Most High told Solomon because of his sins. But that's another story. Now let's get into what he did. He said, and the king of Assyria brought men from Babylon and Cutha and Ava and Hamath and Sepharvaim. And Sepharvaim, Spain, Hamath, Syria, Ava. These are all nations that were considered this Cutha. This is supposed to be a nation that, was like Chittim and in Greece and, territories up there near Iran and all of those, and all of those nations where Mongolia and in the West, nations that were given to, nations that were the Most High's enemies, that he drove out of the area that he gave to Abraham. He said he placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. And so it was at their beginning of their dwelling there, that they feared not the Elohim. Therefore the Elohim sent lions among them and slew them. These are the people that he replaced them with. That the king of Assyria placed them in there to replace us. They went in there doing the same thing. And the Most High, he came for them. Wherefore they spoke to the king of Assyria, saying, these nations that thou hast removed and placed in the cities of Samaria know not the manner of the God of the land. Therefore he sent lions among them, and behold, they slay them, because they know not the manner of the God of the land. And the king of Assyria commanded, say, carry there one of the priests whom ye brought from there, and let them go and dwell there, and let them teach them the manner of the Elohim of the land. And then one of the priests whom they carried away from Samaria, came and dwelt in Bethel and taught them how they should fear the Elohim. But howbeit every nation made gods of their own and put them in the house of the high places which the Samaritans had made, every nation in their own cities. And it tells you now these are the gods that they. And the children of Babylon made a sucking Benoth. The men of Cuth made Nergal. Y'all all heard of these gods? The men of Havan made the Shema. That's almost like that CERN thing with that, that almost like an Indian Hindu type of character with all of the legs and the arms. And Arvarts made Nibaz and Tartak. And the Savarvites burnt their children in the fire to Adrammelech and Anamelech, which is Moloch, the gods of the Savarvites. You see what I'm saying? In this, we're in a situation where rebellion has no place in this world. And the Most High has been showing us for thousands of years, but we just don't want to listen. We just know that's human nature. Not just ours, but it's human nature. But this is the reason why the Most High said that you'll be okay, and I'll bless all of those who are willing to put all of those impulses and all of those desires aside and fear the Elohim. So let's get into it then. And let's go to 25, and this is what happened to Judah. And it came to pass in the 9th year of his reign, in the 10th month, in the 10th day of the month, that Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came, he and all his host, against Jerusalem, and pitched against it. And they built forts against it round about. And the city was besieged until the 11th year of King Zedekiah. And on the 9th day, in the 4th month, the famine prevailed against the city. And there was no bread for the people in the land. And the city was broke up. And all the men of war fled by night by the way of the gate between the two walls, which is by the king's garden. Now the Chaldees were against the city round about, and the king went away toward Jericho. And the armies of the Chaldees pursued after the king and overtook him in the plains of Jericho. And all his army was scattered from him. So they took the king and brought him to the king of Babylon to Riblah, and they gave judgment upon him. And they slew the sons of Zedekiah. These are the kings of Israel, the kings of Judah. They slew the sons of Zedekiah before his eyes, and put out the eyes of Zedekiah and around, and bound him with fetters of brass, and carried him to Babylon. And in the 4th month, on the 7th day of the month, which is the 19th year of the king of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, came King Nebuzaradan, king of the captain of the guard, or the captain of the guard, a servant of the king of Babylon of Jerusalem. And he burnt the house of the Elohim, the king's house, and all the houses of Jerusalem. And every great man's house burnt he with fire. And you see, now the rest of the people that were left in the city, and the fugitives that fell away from the king of Babylon, with the remnant of the multitude, did Nebuzaradan, the captain of the guard, carry away. So he carried them into Babylon. Same thing he did to Israel. So this history gives you clarity that Israel and Judah were basically in captivity together. But let's just stick to the topic now. Now he said, now the pillars of brass that were in the house and the bases and the brazen sea, that was the house of the Elohim, did the Chaldees break into pieces and the captain of the guard carried away. He said, what is that brazen, what they considered to be the brazen sea? See that brazen sea? That was a replica that Solomon made. That was this path that led all the way to the Holy of Holies. And on each side of it was this brazen made of brass that had the replica of seas and waves, like peaks, like you would see how water would do when you look at the ocean, how the waters look like it's flowing and peaking and moving. He made a replica of the ocean on both sides of that path that led to the Holy of Holies, to the tabernacle. Give you an idea of the majesty. And he said he broke that whole sea up and took it away with him. He said the pots, the shovels, the snuffers, the spoons, the vessels of brass, Everything they took away. The bowls, all this was gold and silver. Everything they took away. So let's get off of that and let's go to the captivity. This is where we look at some of the reasons why this is happening. So let's establish some background. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28. Now, Deuteronomy 28 says, and it shall come to pass, this is when they were out there, the Most High had given them the commandments, given them the tables with the law on it. Moses had showed them all of the ways. And he told them, he said, if y'all should hearken and diligently unto the voice of the Elohim, to observe and to do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, then the Elohim will set thee on high above all the nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come upon thee and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken to the voice of the Elohim. He says, now blessed be thou in the city, and blessed shall thou be in the field, and blessed shall thou be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of the ground, the fruit of thy cattle, and the increase of thy kind, flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall thou be the basket of the store. Blessed shall thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shall you be when you comest out. And the Lord shall cause your enemies that rise up against you to be smitten before your face, irregardless of how many of them there are. Always been that way. We were always a people outnumbered. And they shall come against thee one way and flee before thee 7 ways. And the Elohim shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses. I mean, you're going to make sure you well laced with everything. And in all that thou settest your hand to do, he shall bless thee in the land which he give you, and which the Elohim giveth thee. And the Elohim shall establish thee as a holy people unto himself, as he has sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Elohim and walk in his ways. And all the people of the earth shall see thee that are called by thy name. See that thou art called by the name of the Lord. Let me get that passage right now. I'll read it again. And all the people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord. What's that? Yah, Yehuda, Yeriyahu. All of these names with Yah in it. Yeshayahu, Yahuda, Eliyahu. Come on. And they shall be afraid of thee. And the Elohim shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy ground, and the land which the Elohim had sworn unto thy fathers to give thee. And the Elohim shall open up unto thee his good treasure, the heaven, to give thee the rain unto thy land in its season, and to bless all the work of thy hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. So he's saying that he wasn't even going to make us stingy. He was going to allow us to lend to other nations. And the Elohim shall make thee the head and not the tail. And thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if thou hearken unto the Elohim by the commandments of the Elohim, which I commanded thee this day, to observe and to do them. And thou shalt not go aside, from any of the words which I command you this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods and to serve them. And he said, and it shall come to pass, but that if you don't listen to what I'm saying, to observe all the commandments and the statutes, which I commanded this day, then all these curses shall come upon you and overtake you. He said, cursed shall you be in the city, and cursed shall you be in the field. And cursed shall it be the basket of thy store, and cursed shall be the fruit of thy body. Or the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kind, and the flocks of their seed. He's cursing everything. Cursed shall be when thou comest in, and cursed shall you be when you goest out. And the Elohim shall send upon thee cursing and vexation and rebuke, and all that you set your hand to do, until thou be destroyed, and to thou perish quickly because of the wickedness of thy doings. Whereby thou hast forsaken me. And Elohim shall make pestilence cleave unto you, until he have consumed thee off the land, whether thou goest to possess it. He's saying, everywhere you go. And the Elohim shall smite thee with consumption, with fever, and with inflammation. We know this in terms of science and medicine. Inflammation is the beginning of all diseases. That problem right there. An extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting and mildew. You see, with poverty, mildew and mold come with everything. Another way to get you sick and die. Showing you this is all by design. Most High wasn't playing. His judgment, his righteous judgments, and they're holy. Can't look at this as some kind of, he's assassinating their character or attacking them because of they're not good enough. When you hear a lot of stuff where nobody could possess the law. Yes, you can. Nobody, let me get that right. What you hear people say, particularly all of those who claim to follow the law and call themselves Israel today. But they basically say out of the same neck, talking out of both sides of the neck, he's saying that they'll say that no one can fulfill the law. And the scripture just told you, yes, you can. Why would he tell you all this if he know you couldn't fulfill it? Huh? Why would he tell you this if he know you couldn't fulfill it? And if you did break the law, even if you did, there's such a thing called repentance. You ever heard of that? That's when you go one direction and you find out you in error and you go back the other way. And that's the key, because that's what people refuse to do. He said that Elohim, he said he will call pestilence. Oh, I read that. Let me go down and finish. He said, and their carcass, your carcass, wait a minute, let me read it first. The Elohim shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. We see that today. As strong as we are physically and athletically, we have no power before our enemies. And thou shalt go out one way against them, and we now go flee 7 ways before them. And thou shalt see it when the cops come. Some men have a heart attack just when a cop pull over them. And thou shalt be removed into all kingdoms of the earth. Not as the Jews in the world today do. It's the first time I'll mention that, and last time as well. Running stuff. He said you're going to be removed in there with this affliction attached to you. And this curse attached to you. He said, your carcass shall be meat unto the fowls of the air, unto the beasts of the earth. If you look at all of the journals of the people of our treatment, going all the way back since AD 70, you'll see that all of these passages came to pass. To where there were so many of us being slaughtered, wherever towns we were congregated in, at some point they came for us. And they said, no man shall fray them away. They're going to let them eat you. And the Elohim will smite thee with the botch of Egypt. You know those plagues that he put on them, the boils and stuff he put on them in Egypt, with emerods and with the scab and with itch. Therefore, you cannot be healed. And the Elohim shall smite thee with madness and blindness and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways. And thou shalt not but only be oppressed and spoiled evermore. He said, this is all that's coming to you. And no man shall save you. He said, you're going to betroth a wife and another man going to lie with her. Why? Because we are his bride. And when we serve other gods, that's like cheating on them. It's like fornication and adultery. So he's saying, what you put me through, I'm going to put you through. He said, you're going to betroth a wife and another man going to lie with her. You're going to build a house and you ain't going to not even dwell in it. You're going to plant a vineyard and shall not gather the grapes thereof. He said, the ox shall be slain before your eyes and thou shalt not eat of it. Thine ass shall be violently taken away away from you, from thy face. We saw that in Homestead America, where black people were just getting their land and whatnot after the Civil War. And what happened? Everything got taken from them. Thy sheep shall not be, thy sheep shall be given into thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. He said, your sons and daughters shall be given to another people, and thine eyes shall look and fare with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thy hands. We know that from chattel slavery, where you had to go on the auction block and watch your kids, as well as yourself, get sold off into enemies, people you have never laid eyes on. He said, in the fruit of your land and all thy labor shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt only be oppressed, crushed always. And thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. It's going to drive you crazy. You don't mean mad like angry, or he would have said angry. In this case, mad mean mad. Let's look at it. Well, then again, you get the picture. The Elohim shall smite thee in the knees and in the legs, so a botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot into the top of thy head. And the Elohim shall bring thee and the king which you set over thee unto a nation which shall neither thou nor your fathers have known. And there you shall serve other gods of wood and stone. He said, you shall become an astonishment and a proverb and a byword. What do you think nigger is? You ever seen that? You ever seen that that whole thing? I'll give you this just for a second to give you an illustration of this. All right? Let's go to Google Images. Hebos. See that? To be sold on board a ship. Hebos, fine Hebos. What is that supposed to be? They're calling you Hebrews. They're calling you Hebrews, and this is a play the way that, you know, they put S's. I mean, F's where the S's would be and all that. You remember ancient colonial America, the language was jacked up. You see that? The rice koft. It's an F there instead of the... But you hear what I'm saying? This is not a joke. So can't nobody tell you this is without dispute. He's saying you're going to become a proverb like Negro and a byword among all the nations where the Elohim shall lead thee. What do you mean by a byword? We're calling the people who were originally called Hebrews, we're calling you Negro, which is a color. Only group of people in the world identified by a color. Think about that. This is where that comes from. He said, thou shalt carry out much seed in the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall come and consume it. And thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, and shalt neither drink of the wine, nor grapes, gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them. And the olive trees throughout all thy coast, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with oil, for thine oil shall cast his fruit, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. And thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but you ain't going to enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. Now, this don't sound like the people who call themselves Jews today. This is not their history. I'm sorry. It's just not. This narrative we're reading is in no way, shape, or form related to the people who call themselves. Their history is just not this. And they could say it is, but if it is, why weren't you commemorating this? Why wouldn't this be I would consider your barrier, your guardrail to keep you from doing all of the stuff we see you doing today? I just read to you where the people that brought in there, they served their own God. And we've seen that with the images. The Star of David is a graven image. The Lord forbids that. It's an image of a star. He said you ain't going to worship the stars of heaven. That's apostasy. Now let's keep a little dinner, because all of these are just bad news, all bad. Therefore you should serve thine enemies, which the Elohim shall send against thee. Remember, the Most High said, I'm going to chase you down. In hunger and in thirst and in nakedness and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck until he have destroyed thee. And the Elohim shall bring a nation against thee from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth. Mm-hmm. You notice that eagle? What nations from Europe don't use the eagle as their mantra or as their sort of like their crest, their emblem? All of them, even in the Middle East. A nation whose tongue you shall not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which will not regard the person of old, no show favor to the young. We know that from slavery. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou hast trusted there throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout thy land, which the Elohim hath given thee. And you shall eat the fruit of your own body. What's that mean? Your children. The flesh of your sons and daughters, which the Elohim have given thee in the siege. Read Josephus. And read how when the Romans started the siege, which is really started in AD 66, and they sieged them until AD 70, when they finally just destroyed them, burnt everything down. But this siege wouldn't allow any supplies, food, water, or anything to go in and out, just like what you're seeing in Gaza. And that caused them to eat their own children, so that he will not give any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat. That's just, I don't want to say nothing out of my face wrong, but that's just, to me, that's just astonishing. Best way I could say it. Because he has nothing left him in the siege. So he's saying there's nothing left, so the only thing he got to do is eat his children. He said, and the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicate and tenderness, her eyes shall be evil towards the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. And we see that now with our women, the way we raise our daughters and raise our children. That's why the Most High said the prophet Elijah is coming to restore the sons to the fathers, the fathers to the sons. But that's another story. I'll do that post at a separate time. He said, if you will not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, then thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Elohim, Yahweh the Elohim, or Yahweh thy Elohim. He said, you're going to fear this. Then the Elohim will make thy plagues wonderful. Never quite heard those words put together like that, to where you make your plagues wonderful, but not in a good sense, meaning they just become astonishing. The plagues of thy seed, even great plagues of long continuance, like diabetes and like sickle cell and heart disease. He said, moreover, he will bring all of the diseases of Egypt, which thou was afraid of, and they're going to cleave to you. And he said, you're going to be left few in number. Whereas you were the stars of heaven for multitude, meaning you can look up in the stars, not in America primarily, but if you were in other places of the world where you could look up at the stars and you could they're just countless. He said, because you would not obey the voice of the Elohim. He said, you're going to be left few in number. And it shall come to pass as the Elohim rejoiced over you to do good and to multiply you, so the Elohim will rejoice over you to destroy you. Think about that. That's got to be a real serious anger you brought to him. Shame and disgust, to where he is resolved to do this to his own people. Like we just read, only you have I known. But he let you know, you do anything against me, I'm going to punish you for your iniquities. He said, you're going to be plucked off the land where you go to possess it. And he's going to scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth to the other end. And there you shall serve other gods, which neither you or your fathers have known, even wood and stone. Look at that. When you look at Islam, stone of, what do they call that? The stone of Rabo? That, I forget the name of that stone that they have, that they rub on. Wood, the wooden cross. Come on, people. This isn't rocket science. He said, among these nations, you shall find no ease. Neither shall the sole of thy feet have rest. But the Elohim shall give thee there a trembling heart and failing of eyes and sorrow of mind. And in the morning you shall say, would God, if it were even. And at evening you shall say, would God, if it were morning, for the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and with the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Elohim shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by way thereof I spoke unto thee. And you shall see it no more again. And there you shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Do you see that? He's saying that Egypt is not the original name. It's Mizraim, the name of the son of Ham who named him that. He's saying, but Egypt is a term which means bondage, house of bondage. So it means that America becomes an Egypt. And we see by the different things that, that different phalanx or that big long thing that represents a phalanx, and all of these pyramids and all of these different things that commemorate Egypt. He said he's going to bring us into Egypt again by ships. We only know that as the sub-Saharan slave trade. Not the sub-Saharan slave, because that's what I consider to be the Arab slave trade. But this right here is the transatlantic slave trade. That was done by ships, by way of I spoke unto thee. And he's saying that we ain't going to see our land no more. And if you look at Israel, it's only a few that came from Darfur in Egypt in that Aliyah, where they brought them back. But under one condition, you had to serve us under Judaism. It couldn't be under the Hebrew Israelite. Couldn't it be under the Torah that the Most High intended for us to serve? But the point is, he's saying that you're going to be sold to your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. What does that mean? Well, that means that we know that they was buying and selling the slaves all the time. What he means by no man shall buy you is shadow slavery, which means once I sold you, you owned by me for perpetuity. Your kids are owned, your kids' kids, your kids' kids, until the 250 years of slavery was over. You understand what I'm saying? Now let's look at Lamentations 1. Let's look at 1, because this builds the background and the foundation of why this thing is so egregious when it comes to us sinning against the Most High, to where he caused this to happen to us. Let's go to Lamentations 1:5. He said, her adversaries achieve and her enemies prosper. For the Elohim have afflicted her for the multitude of her transgressions. Her children are gone into captivity before the enemy. He said, now the daughter of Zion, just like I was telling you about the daughter of Babylon, we're the daughter of Zion. He said, and the daughter of Zion and all her beauty is departed. And the princes are become like hearts that find no pleasure, and they are gone without strength before the pursuer. Now let's look at Isaiah 5:13. Let's go to Isaiah 5:13. Let's go to Isaiah 5:13. Now look at this. He said, now therefore my people are going into captivity, because they have no knowledge, and their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. You hear what I'm saying? Therefore hell has enlarged herself, and open her mouth without measure, and their glory and her multitude and their pomp, and he that rejoices shall descend into it. You understand what I'm saying to you? And let's look at 22, Isaiah 22, right? And Isaiah 17, behold, the Elohim will carry thee away with a mighty captivity and will surely cover thee. And he will surely violently turn and toss thee like a ball into a large country. And there shalt thou die, and there shall the chariots of thy glory shall be the shame of the Elohim's house. In Jeremiah 15:2, these are all the prophets telling you that this was told. This is why we got no excuse. This was foretold to us by every single prophet he told. Particularly in that situation, I got to cool down because my son is upstairs on his phone. So hold on. Hold on there. Darnell, close that door. Excuse me. Pardon me. I didn't want to stop the recording. Well, at any rate, at the end of the day, let's look at Jeremiah 15:2. Jeremiah 15:2. All right. Jeremiah 15:2. And it shall come to pass that if they say unto thee, where shall we go forth? Then thou shalt tell them, thus saith the Elohim, such as are for death, to death, and such as are for the sword, to the sword, such as are for the famine, to the famine, and such as for the captivity, to the captivity. He's saying that's all you got to look forward to. All right, now let's look at what Messiah. So we're not just, because there's many, these are all throughout the scriptures. All throughout the scriptures where the Most High told us and constantly admonished us and warned us that this was going to happen to us if we didn't get up and repent for our deeds and change our ways. So these captivities, like I read to you earlier in this program, it's not our first rodeo. We've been through this before. This colonial captivity or this transatlantic is just the last ones. You understand what I'm saying? Now, Luke 20:24. Let's look at that. Let's look at Luke 20:24. Right? 20. Let me get that right. 21:24. Let's look at that. He said, now this is what he's saying. The Messiah is saying to them. Because you got to remember, only a handful of them, they all enjoyed the blessings that he gave, when he's feeding the poor and he was feeding all of the hungry and he was doing all those healings and all of those things. None of them really still believed. They still went back to the same old ways. They were still willing to change their ways and repent and adhere to the law as given to them by Moses. So he told them. He said to them, he said that when you see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. So he warned them that the Romans were coming in that siege. He said, then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains. And let them which are in the midst of it depart out. And let not them that are in the countries enter thereinto. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written may be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and them that give suck. And in those days, for there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon this people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword. And they shall be led away captive into all nations. Same thing we read in Deuteronomy. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled. You understand what I'm saying to you? Now let's look at where he talks about this. He talks about the scattering. Let's look at where he talks about the scattering. Let's look at Leviticus. Let's look at Leviticus. Let's look at Leviticus 26. Let's look at Leviticus 26. And in Leviticus 26, he says 33. Let's go down to where he gets specific because I don't want to read the whole chapter. He says, I will bring the land into desolation, and your enemies which ye dwell therein shall be astonished at it. First, he said, I'm going to make your cities waste and your sanctuaries a desolation, and I will not smell, and I will not smell the savor of your sweet odors. So he said, all of the sacrifices you do after the Most High was sending all of these prophets, and you weren't listening, up until the time where he said in Second Kings, he's saying that all of those different sacrifices you were making, I wasn't even listening to that. They were abhorrent to me because they're not done in righteousness. They're done in rebellion. You just going through the motions like we see them doing today in the land that we come from. And you can't say, well, we come from Africa. No, you don't. The Middle East is Northeast Africa. That was just a name these Gentiles tamed up with that. Look at the tectonic plates. That's one landmass. And it's not even a conversation with me. He said, now I will scatter you among the heathen and draw out a sword after you, and your land shall be desolate, and your cities waste. And the land shall enjoy her Sabbath, as long as it lay desolate. Meaning that before they came back in it and rebuilt it, he said, ye be in your enemies' lands. Even then shall the land rest and enjoy her Sabbaths. And our things, we thinking that this land resting means it's going to grow back wild and fruitful and all that. Not so. Most High took all of the fruitfulness from the land, dried it up. It's a desert now. Whole Middle East, which was formerly the land of Judah, is a desert now. So get that out of your head about Africa and being all that. Not only that, the Most High said he was going to scatter us all around the world. There's black people all throughout Africa. That can't be it. He gave us the war. He gave us the land between the Great Euphrates and the River Egypt. And the River Egypt goes all the way in to Africa, deep into Africa, all the way down to darn near Djibouti. You understand what I mean? Hold on. I'm downstairs in my office. Pardon me, folks. I hate to do the little pause for the calls. I know that kind of seemed a little primitive on you, but hey, it is what it is. Now, anyway, let's go to Deuteronomy 4:27. Let's go to Deuteronomy 4:27. Look at that. And the Elohim shall scatter you among the heathens, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen. Where the Elohim shall lead you, and there you shall serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. And he said, but even then, if you seek him, you'll find him. If thou shalt seek him with all thy heart and with all thy with all thy soul. When you in tribulation, with all these things that come upon you, even in the latter days, if you turn from the Elohim and shall be obedient to his face. That's what we should do. And the Elohim, thy Elohim is merciful, and he will not forsake thee, nor destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers, which I swear unto him. Now let's get a little deeper. Let's go into 32:30. Let's go into 32:26. 32:26. He said, now I said, first let's get into context now. Context is everything. He said, I will heap mischiefs upon them and spin mine arrows upon them, and they shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with the burning heat and with bitter destruction. And I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them with the poison of serpents of the dust, which is really deep, because now you're talking about serpents of the dust. What is that? What is serpents of the dust? Those are those microscopic organisms. Germs. Huh? Germs. He said, the sword without and the terror within shall both destroy both the young man and the virgin. The suckling also with the man of gray hairs, meaning nobody, young and old, man or woman, is escaping from this. As I said, I will scatter them into corners and will make the remembrance of them to cease among men. He was not playing. That's why that's why the rest of the world don't look at us as Hebrews and all the pushback against this awakening of the Hebrew Israelites. Because the Most High foretold that he was going to make the remembrance of us cease among men. And let's go to 1 Kings 14:15. Let's go to 1 Kings 14:15. Right? He said, "The Elohim shall smite Israel as a reed is shaken in the water, and he shall root up Israel out of his good land, which he had gave to their fathers, and he shall scatter them beyond the river, because they have made their groves, provoking the Elohim to anger." Right? Let's go to Jeremiah 9:16. Let's go to Jeremiah 9:16. Right? And he said, "And I will scatter them also among the heathen, whom neither they nor their fathers have known." How many times have we've been reading this? Reiterating the same thing. That's why we are definitely without excuse. I just went through this while I'm showing you this is in the scripture all over the place. But those who teach it can't seem to find it. Going back to the stiff-neckedness of our people. And he said, "Now I will scatter them amongst the heathen, whom neither they nor their fathers have known, and I will send a sword after them till I have consumed them." Jeremiah 18:17. Let's look at that. Let's look at that. "And I will scatter them as the east wind before the enemy, and I will show them the back and not the face in the day of their calamity." All right. I'll go back and I skipped a little bit. 13:24. 13:24. "Therefore I will scatter them." He's talking about us. Context is everything. This is admonition. Exile threatened. The Most High is warning us. He's going to exile us. Right? But who took heed to it? He said, "Therefore I will scatter them as stubble that passes away by the wind of the wilderness." You know, like tumbleweed and all that stuff. Whoo! Ezekiel 22:15. Ezekiel 22:15. "And I will scatter thee among the heathen, and disperse thee into countries, and I will consume thy filthiness out of thee." He said, "Thou shalt take thine inheritance in thyself in the sight of the heathen, and thou shalt know that I am the Elohim." That is so deep. Now, we done got into that, laid that background. I'm not going to beat this up because this is depressing. It's disheartening. So let's get into the to me, the climax of this particular presentation. And that is the deliverance and the gathering. And let's look at Jeremiah 24, when he starts to letting you know that everywhere he tells us he's going to get rid of us and kick us to the curb and basically beat us into subjection or break us. You don't want to listen, you just got broken. And we can see this from our history and our grandparents and the grandparents. These were broken people. Literally broken. And maybe it's because they thought they were doing good, but the Most High had already told them that when you go over to these nations, you're going to be serving gods of wood and stone. So we came over here thinking that we were serving Christianity, that we were getting back in the right standard. And that was the wrong answer. We were serving gods of wood and stone, just like he said we were. Now let's look at Jeremiah 29:14. And let's get into why he starts to talk in the way he's changing. He said, "For I know the thoughts that I think towards you. Thoughts of peace and not evil, to give you an expected end." Then shall ye call upon me, and ye shall go and pray unto me, and I will hearken unto you. And ye shall seek me and find me. And ye shall search for me with all your heart. When ye shall search for me with all your heart, and I will be found of you. So he's saying, when you seek me and you got a pure heart, he said, you're going to be found of me. And I will turn away your captivity, and I will gather you from all nations and from all the places where I have driven you, saith the Elohim, and I will bring you again into the place where I caused you to be carried away captive. Let's look at Jeremiah 30. Right? Look at Jeremiah 33. For lo, the days come, saith the Elohim, that I will bring again the captivity of my people, Israel and Judah, saith the Elohim, and I will cause them to return to the land that I gave their fathers, and they shall possess it. And let's look into Isaiah. Let's go into 10. He said, for I am with thee, said, to save thee. Though I make a full end of all nations whether I have scattered you now. He said, though I will make a full end of the nations that he scattered us to. Whew, that's a serious prophecy. A little caveat there that, yeah, even though we go through that, make no mistake, every nation that put a hand on us with in basically, in contempt or to do us evil, not one of them will escape. Because if you see what they did to us, if that came to pass, then I have no reason, or you have no reason to believe that all of these promises that will happen to them will come to pass as well. He says, yet I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and I will not leave thee altogether unpunished. All right, so let's go to 10:16. He said, for I am with thee to save thee. And though I make a full end of the nations, whether I've scattered thee, yet I will not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith the Elohim, thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. There is none to plead thy cause, and thou mayest be bound up, and thou hast no healing medicines, and all thy lovers have forgotten thee. They seek thee not, for I have wounded thee with the wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one, for the multitude of thine iniquity, saying, you brought this on yourself. The punishment fits the crime now, because thy sins were increased. And when thou criest thou for thine affliction, thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine iniquity, because thy sins were increased, and have done these things unto thee. Therefore all they that devour thee shall be devoured, and all your adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity too. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil, and all that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. And I will restore the health unto thee, and will heal thee of thy wounds. Thus saith the Elohim, because they call thee an outcast. That's what they all think of us, saying, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. But he said, but thus saith the Elohim, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tents, and have mercy on his dwelling place. And the city shall be builded up on her own heap, and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. So he said, I'm going to bring nothing but restoration. Let's keep it going. Let's go to 33:7. Let's keep it going. And I will cause the captivity of Judah and captivity of Israel to return, and will build them as at the first. And I will cleanse them from all their iniquity, whereby they have sinned against me. And I will pardon all their iniquities, whereby they have sinned, whereby they have transgressed against me. And it shall be to me a name of joy, and a praise and an honor before all the nations of the earth, which shall hear all the good that I do to them. And they shall fear and tremble for all the goodness and all of the prosperity that I procure unto it. Amos 9:14. Amos 9:14. And I will bring again the captivity of my people Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof, and they shall also make gardens and eat of the fruit of them. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall no more be pulled up out of their land. So he's saying after this captivity is reversed, we're not ever doing this again. He said, now I will plant, and they will no more be pulled up out of their land, which I have given them, saith the Elohim. Wow. And Zephaniah 3:20. Right? Let's look at Zephaniah 3:20. Look, showing you this is all throughout the scriptures. He said, behold, at that time I will undo all that afflict thee, and I will save her that halted, and I will gather her that was driven out. That's us. And I will get them praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. So in other words, where you perceive us now, if there's any other nations other than Israelites watching this, know that that's coming to a very abrupt end. And everything you see is not going to be the reality that you experience. It's going to be something that you have never, ever imagined. I'm telling you right now. And he said, at that time, I will bring you again, even in the time that I gather you. And I will make you a name and a praise among all people of the earth when I turn back your captivity before your eyes. So he's saying that the same way that we witnessed all of our calamities, it was the same way we're going to witness our deliverance. Let's look at Micah 4:10. Let's look at Micah 4:10. All right. He said, now be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion. That means us. Daughter of Babylon, daughter of Zion. Same thing. Like a woman in travail, for now thou shalt go forth out of the city, he meaning Jerusalem, right? And you shall dwell in the field. Africa is known as the fields of Africa. And thou shalt even go to Babylon. And he said, and there thou shalt be delivered. Remember, they didn't get delivered from Babylon to Nebuchadnezzar. They just went from there into captivity, from there to the captivity of the Persians. He's saying, but in this case, there shall Elohim redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. And I can get a little deeper into that, but let's just keep it going. Now let's look at Isaiah 11:12. Let you know that every single prophet talked about this. Every single prophet talked about this. 11:12. And he shall set up an ensign for the nations. Now, first of all, let me read this again. He said, that day there shall be a root of Jesse, which shall stand for an ensign of the people. And it shall be as the Gentiles seek, and his rest shall be glorious. I think those are the two witnesses. Those are the two witnesses. And in my mind, it's either it's Enoch or Elijah. I got a video out on that, but I've learned so much since then. I have a lot more references and a lot more proof to deal with that aspect, but that's another discussion. And he said, this will come to pass in that day that the Elohim shall set his hand again the second time, meaning that the first time is when he come gather us from the nations of the Gentiles. And now he's going to go to the Semite nations. He said he'll set his hand a second time, because remember, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. We went into captivity last because the king of Israel in the Semite lands, or the children of Israel went into the Semite lands first under the king of Assyria. Seemingly a Shemite, but living like a devil. But I digress. Now he's saying that he's going to set his hand a second time to recover the remnant of the people which shall be left from Assyria, Egypt, Pathros, another city or country in Egypt, from Cush, Ethiopia, Elam, India, Shinar, same thing, Middle East, Mesopotamia, and from Hamath, Syria, from the islands of the sea, which means apparently the islands surrounding that sea, Caftor and Cyprus and all of those nations. And he shall set up an ensign for the nation, and he shall assemble the outcasts of Israel. That's different. See that? Because then he's saying he's going to gather together the dispersed of Judah from the four corners of the earth. That's some deep stuff. 43. Let's go to Isaiah 43. He's not finished yet. Let's go to Isaiah 43:5. He said, for I'm the Lord thy Elohim of Israel, thy Savior. I gave Egypt for a ransom, Ethiopia and Saba for thee. That's a deep revelation and prophecy, which we're not going to get into there. But he's basically telling you that he's going to give up some people for us. I don't know whether that means that it's like a ransom that we perceive or a ransom that means that some people got to die. I don't know. I guess we'll all see. He said, since thou was precious in my sight, thou hast been honorable, and I have loved thee. Therefore, I will give men for thee and people for your life. Fear not, for I am with thee. I will bring thy seed from the east and gather thee from the west. And I will say to the north, give up, and to the south, keep not back. Bring my sons from far. Bring my sons from far, and my daughters from the ends of the earth. And everyone that is called by my name, for I have created him for my glory. I have formed him, yea, I have made him. Bring forth the blind people that have eyes, and the deaf that have ears. So he's telling us, he already know we in bad shape. Even though we got eyes, we can't see. And even though we hear, we can't hear nothing. So he's saying that all of us coming. But that gets into another thing where the Most High tells us that the part of that, just like it was with Egypt, where he brought us into the wilderness, where Moses could be the leader and he could introduce the Messiah, or the Most High could introduce himself to us. And that way he could speak to us and we could instill in us his words and his laws. It became a relationship then. You understand what I'm saying? Let's go to 56. Let's go to 56. Right? And the Elohim which gathered the outcasts of Israel said, yet I will gather others unto him. Excuse me. I'm getting a little too excited. Beside those that are gathered unto him. So this is one of the passages that I purposely put in here to let you know that it's not just everybody else is locked out. I know this one guy named Brother Dana from Chicago. And all he do is advocate for the children of Israel, for black people, to use that proverb. You could see the Most High in his heart. And he's saying that those people, they're not going to go, you know what I mean, to where they're not going to be unrewarded. He said, I'm going to gather them with me too. So make no mistake. Now let's go to Jeremiah 31:8. Letting you know that every single prophet talked about this. Isn't that shame? Isn't that shameful how our preachers won't even give you an inkling of what this scripture says, saying that this is what we're teaching and preaching out of? What is on their mind? Just make no mistake though. You know this, it will not go unpunished. It will not go unpunished. Jeremiah 31, I'm in the wrong page. Right? Now let's look at that. Let's look at that. He said, behold, I will bring them from the north country and gather them from the coast of the earth, and with them the blind and the lame, and the woman with child, and her that travaileth with child together. A great company shall return there. So he's saying he's going to bring back a lot of people, and they shall come with weeping, and with supplications will I lead them. And I will cause them to walk by the rivers of waters in a straight way, wherein they shall not stumble. For I am a father to Israel, and Ephraim is my firstborn. Ooh, ain't that lovely? He said, just like a father, restored father. You know the prodigal son story. You're talking about a God that it has a soul that feels. Why you think he did that? If he didn't have emotion, why would he do all of this in his anger? He's saying the same way. He's a God of love, though. That's true. The way everybody, they say, well, God is a God of love. They forget about the judgment aspect, but they are right. He is a God of love. But you got to be in the right place to receive it. He don't throw his pearls before swine, for the use of an expression that I'm sure most of y'all are familiar with. You know what I'm saying? Let's look at 30. Let's look at 32:37. Let's look at 32:37. And behold, I will gather them out of all countries where I have driven them in my anger and in my fury and in great wrath. And I will bring them again to this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely. And they shall be my people, and I will be their God. And I will give them one heart and one way, that they may fear me forever, for the good of them and of their children after them. So this story ain't over yet. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, and that I will not turn away from them to do them good. But I will put my fear in their hearts, that they shall not depart from me. So he's saying he's going to do it this time to where he's not going back. What we put him through before, that ain't never happening again. And you read that in Ezekiel. I'm going to put my spirit within your spirit, and it called you to walk in my statutes. So he's saying, I'm going to put my spirit in your spirit. And it's basically going to govern you in your behavior, to where you ain't going to never go astray from me ever again. He said, yea, I will rejoice over them to do good, and I will plant them in this land assuredly with my whole heart and with my whole soul. Telling you, Most High, I got a soul. I'm a living God. For thus saith the Elohim, like I have brought all of this great evil upon this people, so will I bring upon them all the good that I have promised them. Hallelujah. Let's look at Ezekiel 24. Let's look at Ezekiel 20:41. Right? He said, for in my holy mountain and in the mountain of the height of Israel, saith the Elohim, there shall be all the house of Israel and all of them in the land. Serve me. There will I accept them. And there will I require your offerings. Maybe we're going to still do sacrifices, sin offerings particularly, to commemorate what we've been doing all of these years back in when we were sinning against him. This is to keep it in our mind while we're doing it, so we never go back. He said, the first fruit of your oblations with all your holy things, and I will accept you with your sweet Savior when I bring you out from the people and gather you out of the countries wherein you've been scattered, and I will be sanctified in you before the heathen. And ye shall know that I'm the Elohim when I bring you into the land of Israel, into a country for which I have lifted up mine hand to give to your fathers. Let's look at this other passage, which I think is a really good one. I'd be remiss if I didn't give you this one here as well, give you a little context about all the nations, the four corners, meaning really the four corners. Look at 49, Isaiah 49. Let's look at Isaiah 49:12. Let's start in context. He said, he hath made my mouth like a sharp sword. In the shadow of his hand hath he hid me, and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver hath he hid me. And he said to me, thou art my servant, O Israel, in whom I am glorified. Then I said, I have labored in vain, and I have spent my strength for naught, and in vain. Yet surely my judgment is with the Elohim, and my work is with my Elohim. And now saith the Elohim that formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob again to him. Though Israel be not gathered, yet I will be glorious in the eyes of the Elohim, and my God shall be my strength. Let's just read it where it is. Now he says, and he said, is it a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved of Israel? I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. Thus saith the Elohim, the Redeemer of Israel, the Holy One, to him whom man despises, to him whom the nation abhorreth, to a servant of rulers, kings shall see and arise, and princes also shall worship, because the Elohim that is faithful, and the Holy One of Israel, and he shall choose thee. And the Elohim in an acceptable time I have heard thee. In the day of salvation I will preserve thee and give thee for a covenant of the people, and to establish the earth, and the cause to inherit the desolate heritages. And thou mayest say to the prisoners, go forth. All those, incarcerated black men, yeah, that's for you. To them that are in darkness, show yourselves, and they shall feed in the ways, and in their passages shall be in the high places, and they shall not hunger nor thirst, neither shall the heat nor the sun smite them. For he hath mercy on them. For he that hath mercy on them shall lead them. Even by the springs of water shall he guide them. He's talking about how he gets them. He said, and I will make my mountains a way, and my highways shall be exalted. Behold, these shall come from far. And lo, these from the north and these from the west. He's giving you a picture of how he's gathering all his people. And these from the land of Sinim. Well, people say, what's that mean? Okay, all right, well, we're going to show you. We're going to show you what that means. Sinim, otherwise known the Oriental region, right? Right? Now let's look at Sinim. Let's look at that in regular text. Sinim. Ooh, I'm not even in the right one. Let me go to the other one. Sinim. I don't know why my fingers ain't been working right lately, right? All right, now let's expand that a little bit so you can see it. Let's expand that. Sinim in modern Hebrew is the word for China. You know, the Sinai-Japanese War, the Sino, they call it Sino. Okay, let me get that right. Sino-Japanese War. See that? Mm-hmm. China too. He said, and sing, O heavens, and be joyful, O earth, and break forth into singing. O mountains, for the Elohim hath comforted his people and will have mercy on his afflicted. But Zion said, the Elohim hath forsaken me, and my Lord hath forgotten me. And the Most High responds, can a woman forget her suckling child? That she should not have compassion on the son of her womb? Yea, they may forget, yet will I not forget thee. He said, behold, I have graven thee upon the palms of my hands. Thy walls are continually before me. That's so deep. Let's go to Ezekiel 20:34. Let's go to Ezekiel. Let's go back to Ezekiel. There's a lot of them. It's so many of them. Ezekiel 20:24. Right? This is a scatter, and I'm going to disperse them. Okay, wait a minute. I might have went back. Let me get right. I might have went back. Okay. Now he's saying, let's go to let me go to 34:13, because I think that's where I originally went to go. 34:13. Now he said, I will bring them out from the people and gather them from the countries and bring them into their own land and feed them upon the mountains of Israel by the rivers and all the inhabited places of the country. And I will feed them in a good pasture. And upon the high mountains of Israel shall their fold be. And there shall they lie in a good fold. In a fat pasture shall they feed upon the mountains of Israel. And I will feed my flock and cause them to lie down, saith the Elohim. And I will seek that which was lost and bring again that which was driven away. And I will bind up that which was broken. And I will strengthen that which was sick. But I will destroy the fat and the strong and will feed them with judgment. Let's go to 34:13. 34:13. I'm sorry. Let's go to 36:24. 36:24. Right? He said, I will take you among the heathen and gather you out of all countries and bring you into your own land. And then I will sprinkle clean water upon you, and you shall be clean. This is his baptism. From all your filthiness and from all your idols will I cleanse you. And a new heart I will give you, and a new spirit I will put within you. And I will take away that stony heart out of your flesh, and I will give you a heart of flesh. And this is what I was talking about earlier. And I will put my spirit within you and cause you to walk in my statutes. And ye shall keep my judgments and do them. And he said, ye shall dwell in the land that I gave to your fathers, and ye shall be my people, and I will be your God. Hosea 8:10. Let's keep it going. Hosea 8:10. Yea, though they have hid among the nations, now I will gather them. And they shall sorrow little for the burden of the King of Princes. That's a different context. I think I went to the wrong one, because this context is about Ephraim. This is about Ephraim. Pardon me for that one. So I'll go to Micah 2:12. I'll go to Micah 2:12. Right? I will surely assemble Jacob, all of thee, and I will surely gather the remnant of Israel, and I will put them together as the sheep of Basra, as of the flock in the midst of their fold, and they shall make a great noise by reason of the multitude of men. Matthew 13:41. Let's go to Matthew. Let's go to New Testament, Messiah. 13:41. Let's go to 13:41. Let's get into the New Testament a little bit. Okay? Let's get into the New Testament for it. Now he said, now, the Son of Man, Messiah Yahushua, shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all that offend, and to them which do the iniquity. Wait a minute, that's not the right one. I'm talking about what a white one, when he says that he's gonna gather them. He gather his elect from the four corners. That's 24:31. My bad. That's 24:31. And he said, immediately after the tribulation of those days, which we're seeing right now, apparently it'll get to a point to where we'll know when the tribulation of those days are over, because he's saying the sun going to be darkened. And not one of these predetermined from their almanac and all of their naysayers and prognosticators. It's going to be one of these days, when this day where the sun is darkened, they're not going to see it coming. They're not going to be able to calculate the movement for it to come up to where they could see it before it happens and try to distort the narrative. They're not going to be able to see it. So he's saying it's going to come out of nowhere, and the moon will not give her light, and the stars start falling from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, which is a sign that we're going to see him in his glory. He said, then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. So he said, when they see him and know that it's on, and that everything that they was thinking about the Most High is all wrong, and all of these things they perceive and their whole perception of him is all trash, they're going to mourn. And he said, they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Sheesh. Look at Mark 13:27. Let's look at Mark 13:27. Look at Mark. And he said, and they shall, another reiterating. He said, all the stars of heaven shall fall, and the powers that are in the heaven shall be shaken. And then they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then he shall send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from the uttermost part of the earth to the uttermost part of heaven. And then here is my end game. The end game to this. Isaiah 60 is the end game. He says, arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Elohim is risen upon thee. Y'all remember the story where Moses came down from the mountain, and because he was with the Most High for 40 days and 40 nights up there, when he came down, they said his skin glowed. He had the glory of the Elohim from emanating in his presence. It cleaved to his body, and he had the glory of the Elohim on him. And he said he had to put a veil on his face. You read it in the book of Exodus, it's right there. He said, for behold, the gross darkness shall cover the people. And right now, we can see that right now, except for this darkness in terms of the earth, because he talks about Babylon going into darkness, meaning that whatever these wars generate, somehow they're going to start messing with them satellite systems, and they're going to cut out all the lights. Cut down all the computers, all the generators, all of the nuclear power plant, all that's going to be null and void. And he's saying gross darkness to people, meaning the people are going to be in such a darkness to where it's going to be, you'll know it, because it's like that today. Right now, our people, the world over, are dark. He said, but the Elohim shall arise upon us. His glory shall be seen upon thee. So he's saying the lights are out, but the Most High's glory is shown upon you. This is the event that takes place as we rise. I can't even imagine it. It's just that I believe the scriptures, because I know from the things that he's delivered me from in my lifetime, I know them to be true. Most High has delivered me so many times, I can't even count. And I'm not just, that's not hyperbole. That's reality. It's my testimony. I can tell you stories from the hospital that I went through and came out to where you wouldn't even believe it. But at any rate, he's saying that lift up thine eyes round about and see, and they gather themselves together. Now, wait a minute. He said, now the Gentiles shall come to your light, meaning they're going to see it. They're going to come to it. First of all, it's going to be dark anyway, but it's going to be the astonishment of the rising of these people to where they're going to know, where it don't have to be said. It's one of those things to where you ain't got to teach people about what's going on and instruct them. They'll be able to see and discern. Wait a minute, this is the children of the Most High. He said, they lift up thine eyes round about and see, and they shall gather themselves together. They come to thee. Thy sons shall come from far, and thy daughters shall be nursed at thy side. And then you shall see Meaning that all of these things that we forgotten about, the Most High going to show us what's going on, because we're going to be, learning, or not just say learning. We're going to automatically understand what's happening the same as the Gentiles. That's what he means by you'll be able to see, because it's almost like you get an epiphany or something comes into you where you get one of those aha moments, as they say. Like, oh, shoot. He said, then you're going to see and flow together. Meaning that all of this division we all hail and talk about and scoff at, he said that's not going to be the case when he gathers us. We're going to flow together as one people of one mind. And their heart shall fear and be enlarged, because of the abundance of the sea shall be converted unto thee. And the forces of the Gentiles shall come unto thee. And I take that to mean when you convert something, it's not the same as dividing something. Like they did, we divided the water into the two parts where the children of Israel could travel through the Red Sea. In this case, he said he's converting something. Let's see if, I've never looked at, but let's see if he can give us a little bit of what that means. He said to turn about or over, to change, overturn, repent, pervert, to become, to change, to be converted. So in other words, to me, being that apparently their definition doesn't quite capture the definition of this, because he's talking in context about the ocean. So you can't pervert the ocean unless you're meaning manipulate it in that space. But I look at converting, it's like when you say, I'm going to convert ice to water, or I'm going to convert solid ice to gas. See my drift? Catch my drift, rather? He's saying the ocean's going to be converted unto thee. And what do you think that means? Well, I got one guess. Let's look at this. Let's look at this. Let's look at the whole. Let's look at this. Let's rate it up a little bit so we can see. Okay. Right? I want to show you this because this is directly, at least this is what I believe he's saying. I think it's Psalm 60, ain't it? Who are thee that fly as clouds? Because I always do this. When I start seeing words after a while, they start looking like the same. Who are these that fly as clouds? Okay, hold on. Maybe I got to take the S out. All right, well, let's just do Windows then. Sorry about that. Hate to have this little hiccup. Who are these that have this little hiccup? Here it goes. I thought it was Psalm 60. Let's look at that. Who are these that fly as a cloud and as doves to their windows? Maybe I could be off, maybe I'm not. But that's what I perceive it to mean. He's going to convert the ocean. And he's saying that we flying as clouds to their windows. And I've heard places to where some of us going to be in ships, some of us going to be in planes, some of us going to be in clouds. It's going to be deep either way. Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from the far, and the silver and their gold with them. And I could be wrong, though. Just for sheer honesty. It could mean, based on the context of this, he's saying that There's going to be people flying alongside us if we're in planes, if you're looking at it from that aspect, that we seeing out our windows, which you can see in a plane got windows. Catch my drift? So I'm going to close that out there because I think I gave you a whole lot of information, but I just wanted you to understand that we're living in some serious days, people. This is what they call the consummation. The consummation. And the consummation is the redemption of all of these things our forefathers experienced. It's the redemption from that. And if you know anything about the resurrection, because they had no choice in things, they're going to be all right. Unless they turned into a coon thing to where you were using your work just as, you heard of that field Negro against the house Negro thing, and where you had some of them would turn in their brother and stuff, and if they would escape slaves and they would use, you know what I mean, they wouldn't have any loyalty to each other the way they would cause their brethren to return or have to return to slavery. Other than those type of folks, they're going to get their redemption, these forefathers of ours. And the days are coming, because you got to remember them. Babylon, in terms of the 400-year prophecy, 1619 is when the first slaves are supposed to arrive in Babylon. And mind you, this doesn't include the North American captivity. Because remember, he says this as per this passage, so we get some clarity. As per this passage, right? He said, and to serve them and afflict them 400 years. And also that nation. It's in a group of nations. This is plural. I mean, this is singular. Pardon me. That nation. He's talking about one nation, which to me infers that he knows that we will be in captivity to the strongest nation on earth, which will be America, aka Babylon, or the daughter of Babylon. So this situation, if you've seen it in 2019, was supposed to have culminated to 400-year captivity. But what does the passage say? Let me go back real quick. Now, what did the passage say? And that nation whom they serve will I judge. What happened in 2020? We had the George Floyd riots. We had the commemoration of every nation on earth commemorating the 400 years that a black Negro stayed in America. And most of these nations didn't even know how long the black people were in their own land, like Spain and Portugal, Italy, and whatnot. But they were all commemorating the fact that in America, these black people were there 400 years. And to me, that's a form of the gospel. When you couple that with what we were just studying today about his deliverance, that's the gospel. That's the Messiah coming to gather his elect. But just think about it. 2020, George Floyd riots, violence. I mean, this nation was on the verge. It really was. Then you had all the forest fires, burnt down so much of the country. Then you had COVID. Then you had COVID. And then what did COVID do? You guys remember in COVID, when you walked into a grocery store and the shelves were empty? People who seemingly were making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year couldn't go to work because they banned all of the people from making any money, closed up all the churches. Them churches never went back. Most High did that purposely. He shut them church. Now the numbers that were in churches before and after, vastly different. So you're saying that from 2020, after the year after 1619, or thereof, the beginning in 60, but I would say 2020, when the George Floyd issue happened, when the whole world saw that man killed with this police officer's knee on his neck. And you can argue all of these particulars and all that, irregardless, it was murder. Because I don't see it happening to white men. So shut up. They don't do it to white men. So at the end of the day, these people are still in judgment. But what's that mean? That means that even though you're looking at that time and everybody was expecting us to be delivered and gathered, and a lot of us faltered now, went back a lot of us went back to our old ways. But they don't realize what coincides with the judgment was the space to repent. Like you read in Revelation, he's given these nations space to repent. That's how he's a God of love. That's his heart, even with his enemies, because they're still his creation. They were perverted by the fallen angels who are also his creation. So we have been in a grace period since 2020. But you can see as the storm clouds of war start to gather that we just about out of time. I could show you prophecies about Israel, but we'll do that in another study that shows you that last year, before that conflict happened with all of that in Israel, the Most High gave him 2,300 years. And he said that land would begin, or that land would be cleansed. Well, what do you mean by 2,300 years? He said that after 2,300 years shall the sanctuary be cleansed. That's in the book of Daniel. And what does that mean? Well, Alexander the Great conquered the whole known world in 323 BC. And that year he died, he divided the kingdom up into his 4 generals. And from that point where his 4 generals took over the earth, the Most High said 2,300 years from that date, he's going to cleanse the land. And if you add 2,300 years from AD or 323 BC and add 2,300 years, it takes you to 2023. Unless you can't add. And with that, I'm going to say, get ready. I encourage you to humble yourself and prepare for his coming, because it will not wait. Most High has waited for us for 2,000 years for this. It's like somebody waiting to bring their children home. But he's given us space to repent, and that's more so us than them, to acknowledge that he's even coming for us. Our people don't even know he's coming for us. Anyway, folks, with love and honor and with respect, I encourage my people to consider this message, because it is surely going to come to pass. Shalom.